Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, whale games. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the sale on the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. Let's go ahead and jump in. So, I wanted to talk a lot about the larger wallets holding Bitcoin, and we want to look to see what are some of the whales doing during market conditions like what we're seeing now. And if you want to look at this stuff, I'll leave a link down in the description below. This is not my website; it's bitinfocharts.com, and then you can go to the rich list. Like, so you just go to the rich list and you can click on the Bitcoin rich list. And what I want to do is just go through some of the larger wallets and look to see, what are wallets doing, what are they not doing, and maybe this will give a unique perspective on the market that we haven't shown on the channel before. But I would recommend checking this website out. They have a lot of cool things. So the first thing is you sort of scroll down here. A lot of these are just exchange wallets. So what they're doing is relatively, it doesn't really matter that much because they're just constantly moving crypto in and out depending on the needs that they have, depending on like the demand that they're currently seeing or whatever. And so you can see that the top wallet here that has 252,000 Bitcoin in it is owned by Binance. There's one with 168,000 Bitcoin in it that's owned by Bitfinex. But then there's wallet number 3. So this is an interesting wallet, and this is one that I actually follow. I actually check in on it every 2 or 3 days, to be completely honest. Um, Maybe every day, I just don't want to admit it. But this is what we call whale number 3. And I've always been, and maybe I'm just in the dark on it, but I've always wondered who is whale number 3, right? Who is it? Because I think it's an unknown entity. But the thing is they have 127,112 Bitcoin. 127,000. That's almost $5 billion worth of Bitcoin. So then it begs the question, well, what are they doing, right? What have they been doing during this time? And I do think it's an interesting wallet to follow because you have to think that if someone has, almost $5 billion worth of Bitcoin, they're probably going to, be a little bit on. Maybe they have a insight in the market that we just simply do not. So let's go see what wallet number 3 has been doing. So this is whale number 3. Leave a comment down below based on who you think whale number 3 is, because they currently have 127,000 Bitcoin. And what you notice is that really they have been DCAing up until February 3rd. Okay, so their last buy was at, these are like really small, these are like 0.00, just like a really tiny amount, like 24 cents. But there, and by the way, before we get into this, I will say this. This does not necessarily mean buying and selling, right? It's just on-chain data. It could be shuffling Bitcoin around. We don't really know, but some of them certainly do look like a formal DCA or DCA into the market, DCA out of the market kind of thing. And I think you'll kind of see this with whale number 3. So what you see is that they were buying throughout January and February, early February, but they stopped buying when Bitcoin was at 37K. So that was the last time they bought. And they have not bought really since then, based on this wallet. And you can see that everything just kind of went silent after February 3rd. Before that, they were DCAing, 160 Bitcoin here, 605 Bitcoin over here, 612 Bitcoin, 13 Bitcoin, 241 Bitcoin, you know, just fairly constant DCA of Bitcoin into this wallet. What's interesting though is when is the last time they sold, right? So when's the last time they sold? Well, this is just one Bitcoin, right? So who really cares if you have $5 billion worth of Bitcoin? It looks like they moved one Bitcoin out right here, and then it looks like they just moved it right back in. So I don't really know what's going on there. But if you go down and you keep going and you keep going, you can see here they offloaded 1,500 Bitcoin on November 8th at 67K. 1,500 Bitcoin at 67K, which was about $101 million. Now, what's interesting is that's a lot of Bitcoin, right? Like 1,500 Bitcoin is a significant amount of Bitcoin. You're talking about over $100 million. But $100 million, for a portfolio, which is now worth, $5 billion almost after this major pullback, isn't really that much, right? I mean, like, obviously $100 million is a lot of money, but relative to the amount of Bitcoin this portfolio owns, it's not that much. So this chart right here shows the balance in Bitcoin and then the balance in USD. So you can see that the wallet has been steadily accumulating since 2019 in Bitcoin. So as you go through the years, there's periods where they do take some off the table, but then it regularly grows through the years. And you can see even they took a large amount of profits here in early 2021. You can see the amount of Bitcoin they owned went down significantly, but then they pretty quickly bought that, or they pretty quickly got that back in March, and then they've continued to move up, and then it went down some during the summer, and then going into August, September, October. But then ever since then, it's more or less just been in an uptrend until February, and it's been going sideways. So whoever this is, I mean, they have some conviction, right? This is someone who has some conviction in Bitcoin, because they've been DCAing Bitcoin basically since 2019, and they've only taken, marginal amounts off the table at any given time. But this is an interesting thing to follow, because you can see that, 1,500 Bitcoin was sold at 67K based on this, which, I mean, of course, maybe they didn't sell it. We don't really know. But you can also see that they had been adding some. They added 184 Bitcoin at 61K almost. They added 423 Bitcoin at 61K as well. And then they just offloaded a lot of it. And then you can see that they started just DCAing again. And then here they added back 1,100 Bitcoin, $3,000 lower. So it's almost like, you can imagine, selling some and then the price drops and then you buy some of it back just to make sure you get some of it back. I don't know. I really don't. But in order to see some of their more significant sells in a row, you would actually have to go back to October. So you can see 3,000 Bitcoin was taken out at 50K, and then another 3,000 here at 54K, and then another 1,500 at 56K. So they definitely were selling, some of the Bitcoin that it looks like they had been accumulating. And there's a lot more sells further down. But here's some sells actually in the summer. At some of the lower prices. So whether these are sells or not, it's hard to know. But what it does show is that just because you have a lot of Bitcoin, it does not mean you have, it does not mean you know exactly what's going to happen in the market, because here you can see 3,000 Bitcoin was traded out or moved out at around a price of 39K, and then another 3,000 was taken out at around 42K, and then another 1,500 Bitcoin was taken out at 48K. And then you can see that they started regularly putting some in for a while, from, say in the 40s, and then in the 50s they started taking some out. But what's interesting is they haven't really taken any out in a while. Okay, so they basically just DCA'd for a while, and then they've just been sitting on this. And the last time they bought, or at least the last time they put Bitcoin in this wallet, was back on February 3rd. It was 274 Bitcoin at just over $37,000. Okay, so that's one wallet. I want to talk about a few other wallets as well. So we have some of them up here. So here's a wallet that currently has 24,000 Bitcoin in it, almost 24,600. But you can see that they have this sort of, and by the way, their first buy was in November, or their first trade into this account was in November. But you can see that they were adding here into the wallet in the 40s and 30s, and then they took some off the table at 36K, and then they bought some of it back, or they transferred some of it right back in, just a few $100s below that, and then they took more out at 41K, 3,500, and then ever since then they've been slowly adding again back in, right? So took some out at 41, and then they've been adding back in ever since. Again, are they buying or selling? Hard to know, but this is at least the transactions going in and out of the wallet. So continuing on, here's an interesting wallet that is sort of all over the place, right? So you can see that it's been all over the place between buying and selling. If we go all the way back, the first time that this wallet purchased or had Bitcoin in it was back in October of 2021. It moved up fairly quickly, and then it's just been very choppy. And then recently, their most recent stuff is actually very hard for me to understand because I mean, you can see all these transactions are taking place today, February 22nd, right? And it's a lot of selling, or at least a lot of moving out. Okay, I mean, just consistent, but then occasionally you see some come back in, right? Like 70, 20 out, 44 out, 58 out, 94 out, 20 out. And then let's see, let's just do some back of the envelope math here. So 90, 130, let's add so 190, add another 90, 280, 300 or so, and then they move 225 back in. So you can see that they move some out occasionally, and then they move back in, and you can actually see sort of the running profit that any individual account is at. For instance, whale number 3, their profit right now, according to this on-chain stuff, right, which we don't really fully know, but it's at 2.7 billion. Okay, the reason it's so high is because they first started getting it back in 2019, and they were even still accumulating, through 2020. Even during the March drop, they continued to accumulate, and you can see that they actually added a lot during the pandemic drop right here. You can see they went pretty hard, and then just continued on. This wallet right now, based on this, is that sitting at 261 million down. This one is sitting at 632 million down. Right, if you think your day is bad, right? So anyways, you can see that recently they've been all over the place, right? Like taking some out, putting it right back in, and this is all taking place on the same day. Some of the stuff is just really hard to understand, You go look at this one. This one's kind of interesting. The first time Bitcoin came into this wallet was in October. They added 6,229 Bitcoin to this wallet when Bitcoin was at 56K. What I think is interesting is they've been adding significantly to this wallet, and another 9,000 Bitcoin recently came into this wallet at around 40K, or another 9,000 Bitcoin. So in total now they have over 40,000 Bitcoin, and you can see they basically have just been regularly adding to their Bitcoin position as the months go on. And then finally, we have one more wallet I wanted to look at here. This one has also been sort of all over the place as well, but you can see that they first started getting Bitcoin back in late 2018. So this was someone who really saw what was coming. And they started really going deep into Bitcoin in late 2018 and early 2019. You can see they're adding several hundred Bitcoin at a time, thousands of Bitcoin at a time. And really, the first thing that I see, I don't know, this says 0, but right now it says they took out 32,000 Bitcoin here. So if you go up, you can see it right here. It's because it went to, I guess they basically went down to, they basically completely liquidated everything they had. So they had a total of 32.9 thousand Bitcoin on March 9th of 2020. And then on March 17th of 2020, it looks like all of it was transferred out for a potential loss, if it was actually sold, of $87 million. Right? Interesting. But then what's interesting more is that they just started putting it right back in about 7 months later. They added 3,000 Bitcoin back at 38K, and then they just kept adding more and more and more. And then the last time they added was on February 16th at 49K. I don't really fully know if this stuff is buying or selling or not, but it does give us a glimpse into maybe some of the whale behavior. I think it's sort of like a common misconception that whales know exactly what's going to happen and what they do is going to dictate the market. I think there's plenty of evidence to suggest that, like us, they also don't really know what's going to happen, and they do the best they can with the information that they have, despite the fact that they transferred out almost 33,000 Bitcoin over here for a potential loss of 87 million. Right now, their position, because they picked some up at higher prices a little bit later on, back in later in 2020, you can see that their current position is up 718 million. So Bitcoin gives and Bitcoin takes away. It generally gives over the macro scale, but there is some interesting on-chain stuff. And then I also thought that there were some other things that were interesting. We're just going to take a brief look at some of these other wallets down here. There's a lot of wallets that have like just under 10,000 Bitcoin in them. There's also a lot that have 10,000 Bitcoin in them. What I think is somewhat interesting is that a lot of these wallets, if you look here at the top, this is first in and last in. They first started accumulating Bitcoin, some of them in December of 2018, and then their last buy was in the summer of 2021. So like a lot of them look something like this, where they added December 2018 a significant amount of Bitcoin near the market cycle bottom, and they only reaccumulated. They didn't accumulate anything really in 2019 or 2020, but the next time that some of these accumulated was in 2021 during the summer lull at around $31,000. So they were able to buy the bottom or close to the bottom in 2018. And then the last time a lot of these have incoming transactions is at the summer lows or really close to the summer lows. This one's at like 31,000. But you can see a lot of them look like that, right? Like the last in for a lot of them is like July 29th or July 21st. And if you go to the second page, you'll see the same stuff, right? A lot of these wallets first accumulated in late 2018. I mean, there's a ton of them. They could all be owned by the same person for all we know. But you can see late 2018, a lot of them. A fairly significant amount of Bitcoin coming in late 2018, and then not a whole lot of activity until the end of the summer lull, where this one came in at 31K. So there are a lot of wallets that look like this, a lot of them, right? Like a lot of 2018s was the first in, and then a lot of the last ends for Bitcoin was in during the end of the summer lull. I do find that relatively interesting, but you can also see there's tons of wallets that have like 8,000 Bitcoin and 9,000 Bitcoin, and a lot of them, the last time they accumulated was back during the summer lull. Like you can see, like in June they accumulated. Like if we just go click on one of them, this person first started accumulating in 2018. Well, in January 2018, at a price of $16,000. That didn't really work out so well in the short term, and you can see that they eventually took some out at $8,000 or so. So yeah, I mean, it really does go to show that who really knows, right? Who really knows? But again, the same thing is you can see a lot of these wallets, they accumulated first in 2018, and then their last accumulation looks to be during the summer lull. Where they picked up, a little bit more, right? So like some Bitcoin over here, a decent amount of Bitcoin, and then a marginal amount back during the summer lull. You'll see a lot of wallets that have done that, and then a lot of those wallets that did that are in that category of first accumulating in late 2018 and then reaccumulating for the first time back during the summer lull. They haven't done anything since then. Like they haven't moved Bitcoin out since then, but they also haven't been adding Bitcoin since then. A lot of them look like that, right? You can see a lot of similarities. This one hasn't really added anything since the end of 2018, but also nothing has really gone out either, and so on and so forth, right? You get the idea. It's just the same thing over and over. These that you can see they have not added since the end of 2018. So the point is there's a lot of activity going on this on-chain stuff, and it's really hard to know whether it's buying or selling or whether it's just transferring in and out. But it does go to show you will see activity pick up around major moves in the market, like we saw one whale move out a lot of Bitcoin during the pandemic drop, and then started moving it again 6 months later once the market looked better. Definitely a lot of interesting things going on, so make sure you check it out. Not my website, of course, but it is bitinfocharts.com. And I do check on this occasionally to see what the different whales are doing. What is whale number 3 doing, right? What are they doing? And hopefully it's at least somewhat informative. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, check out the sale on the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. I'll see you next time. Bye.